It's the Opperman Report. Join digital forensic investigator and PI Ed Opperman for an in-depth discussion of conspiracy theories, strategy of New World Order resistance, high-profile court cases in the news, and interviews with expert guests and authors on these topics and more. It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman. You can find me at Opperman Investigations and Digital Forensic Consulting. If you just email me directly at oppermaninvestigations@gmail.com. If you like our show, be sure and check out our Patreon. Go to Opperman Report Patreon. You'll find all our shows that we do Monday to Friday, AM, FM radio. You can find over there for ad-free, commercial-free at Patreon. But also to help support the show by giving us a little funding to keep the work going here for you. Our archive is always free. Go to Spreaker.com. There's a chat room. I do a live show every Friday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. A little late tonight, about 20 minutes late. This chat room, get an email notification when I put up new content, play repeats every night. And I think that's about it. So just finished recording with Daniel Hopsicker from madcowprod.com. Used to run that website called Mad Cow Morning News. Wrote the book Barry and the Boys about Barry Seal, lived with Barry Seal's widow. Did incredible reporting on Muhammad Atta, the hijackers down in Venice, Florida, where he lives now. Had him on the show 10 years ago. And I was one of the first people he had done. I don't think he had done an interview. You know, he had done one interview before me. And other than that, I did a presentation on one of these 9/11 YouTube symposium kind of things. And I was lucky enough to get him on the show back then. Recently, he's made an announcement. He wrote an article on madcowprod.com, and it's called Everything Can Change in a New York Minute. In a New York Minute, everything can change. Came out June 13, 2023, and Daniel Hopsicker announced at the time that he had stage 4 pancreatic cancer. So I wanted to get him on a show, talk about his life, talk about his work, and what's on his mind, and to make a, reach out to the audience who loves him so much. And, we had scheduled for 4 o'clock. The guy's in hospice, you'd let him pick the time. Okay, I let him pick the time, 4 o'clock. And we went a bit over. Okay? And I got to tell you, when you got a guy like that, and you respect so much, and he's talking, you want to hear what he has to say. And you want to hear what he has to share with the world. And it reminds me of a time back in the early, late 90s when I was traveling with the Gospel Tent Ministry. And the evangelist, my friend R.J. Knight, was an old fellow back then. I had a lot of respect for him. I still do. I love him as a father. And he had been out all day. And when it was time for him to, he was late. He was late for the tent meeting. And we went up there and he started talking about, his day and what had gone through, people he had prayed with and experiences, the movement of the Holy Spirit he had seen that day. And, he was going on and on and on. And he said, the audience was starting to, say, boy, it's taking a long time. And he took his watch off and he threw it. And he goes, you want to see time fly? He said, I got a lot to say tonight. And it blew me away, and when a man like Daniel Hopsicker is talking, I want to sit there and listen to what he has to say and what he has to share with the world. So I got to see some time fly tonight, okay? Now, keep an eye out for that interview. I'll be playing it shortly, and I think I'll be able to get him. He sounds great. He sounds really, the pain situation seems to be taken care of. So I'd love to be able to have him come back again before it would be our last interview. I don't want to think that that's going to be the last interview. I'd like to think it's just one of many more. Daniel Hopsicker, madcowprod.com. Let's see. What's going on? I missed a couple of live shows a couple of weeks in a row. My daughter, Victoria, on the eve of her graduation, college graduation, she was offered a job, a very, very good job. So we had at the last minute, had to pack up everything, and she had to move across country. So we flew out to Vegas. We bought a car there, and we drove it, and to help her get an apartment, all kind of stuff, and set her up. She's doing great as far as the new apartment. My God, beautiful. And she's doing great at the new job. It's a very prestigious position for a kid coming out of college. Forget it. Practically unheard of. But I'm exhausted and I'm beaten to the bone. And we've just been so busy and moving furniture and buying things at thrift stores and furnishing her apartment. And, going to Target and getting the bedding and the sheets and all kinds of stuff. It's just been exhausting. Trying to keep up with all this. So I did miss a couple of shows. I pre-taped a live show in advance, and then I missed last week altogether. I couldn't even get back here. We had issues with the audio. I had to buy a new microphone. And then, oh my God, I got this whole situation. I could go on for 2 hours. I spent the whole day to the Department of Motor Vehicles. My license, it turns out, was accidentally suspended, okay, due to a mix-up with being double billed. And it's a long story, but anyway, so right now my license it's been seized by the police, but it's not suspended. It's actually I haven't verified that it's invalid, but at the time when I was pulled over, it was suspended at that time incorrectly, but I fixed it in a matter of moments. But as of this moment, I have no physical license. And so how am I going to get on a plane? We don't know. We're working on all this. One other big development we have going on for you here is the May Brussels project. I want you to keep an eye out on that. And the Opperman Report, in partnership with the May Brussels project. Now, they're looking to have a physical library of all of May Brussels' research materials in her files and filing cabinets. They're being meticulously scanned and documented, but the archives of her show are going to be played on the May Brussels channel on the Opperman Report podcast. So the best way to get a hold of that would be go to Spreaker.com, find the Opperman Report, or go to Spreaker.com and put in the May Brussels project. But go to OppermanReport.com, find the May Brussels project. It's one of my shows. I'll be playing them, I think, on Sunday mornings. I may play like 3 of them in a row on Sunday mornings. What I did initially was I played her first show, and then I played 2 interviews I did with her daughters. With I did no advance publicity or anything, and it's gotten a huge, incredible response. And we're going to be putting an ad on the radio stations too, so that people can hear about it and follow us at the Opperman Report, the May Brussels project. Okay, I can tell you back, you couldn't get May Brussels back in New York City back in the 70s, in her heyday when she was on KPFA in California. And the sister station, WBAI, would get audio tapes, cassette tapes. After she would air her show, they would show up in the mail and WBAI in Manhattan, and you had to sign a sheet in order to take them home with you and listen to it, and then people would know who had it last, and then you'd have to bring it back, and if you didn't bring it back in time, you get yelled at. And that's how I used to listen to the old May Brussels show. There's gonna be electronic mail. She was so ahead of her time on so many things about email. She was furious at the idea of email, electronic mail, where all of our mail would be going through the computer wires, and they'd be able to read our mail. And now look at us, we have Siri and all those stupid recordings in our home. Alexa and all these things. They're listening to us constantly of everything we do and talk about, and where micro data mined all over the freaking place. So she was way ahead of her time with that. So that's May Brussels, the May Brussels Project. You can find it at OperaReport.com. Coming up after this tonight, we have Barrett Brown. We get into some stuff about Julian Assange, which we share the same opinions on, and also to his issues with the government surveillance and infiltration of Wikipedia, of WikiLeaks, and Anonymous, and all his issues he's got. He's a expatriate out there in exile, facing charges in the United States. And then we have Casey Gain Magala returning for about his 5th or 6th appearance. He's sort of like the Steve Martin or the Alec Baldwin of the Opperman Report. I love to have him back. I'm going to check out his book, the Secret War, the CIA Secret War in Jamaica. And we were talking about that whole episode with Chris Tucker, Michael Jackson, and Jeffrey Epstein. And we get into that, and I think we cover it pretty well. Always enjoy having Casey Gain Magala on the show. So that's a nice little lineup for you tonight of brand new content. And I ask you, too, when you listen to these shows, it would really be a big help if you could retweet and share them on your platforms, on your Facebook, on your Twitter, your Reddit. If you can post these shows for me, especially if you post the Spreaker link. Let me take a look. The Spreaker audience this month is up like 35-40%. It's some insane number. Let me check this real quick. And I'm really not doing anything new, and I've been so lazy about the titles and the tags and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, up 38% as of today. In the previous 30 days, we've gone up 38%. So I'd love to see that continue. And you can help that out by retweeting and sharing and posting. I post on Truth Social. I can't let all the Trump guys see it. By the way, last week's show, let me pull up my notes. Why do you even get around to these notes? I don't even need them, man. Because I tell you, man, talk to a guy like Hopsicker, man. I respect this guy so much. And I tell you, I can't wait. I look forward to letting you hear that show. And he's got a great sense of humor. It's, let's see. My notes, because we had this huge situation. My God, I look at these notes. It seems like such, because we're not talking about the submarine. The most important issue out there is this submarine. Some billionaires were in a submarine. What about all these refugees, man, that drown every freaking day out there? No one's looking for them. These poor Haitians and these poor Cubans who come out here, searching for a better life. They're these poor Haitians who escape Haiti from escaping capitalism to come to the United States for freedom. No one talks about them. No one gives a damn about them, And I remember back in Vegas, the search and rescue, Nevada, wilderness search and rescue. I actually took a little training class from them one time because I used to go hiking out in the desert all by myself. And if you got stranded out there, the helicopters would come and they'd drop a basket. You'd have to climb into the basket, strap yourself in, they'd pull you out. And so, you did a little training for that, just in case, God forbid, that ever had to happen to you. And I took that training from them out there. I forgot what I was going to say. Oh, yeah, but I always thought, listen, they spent all this money to save one lone hiker out there in the middle of nowhere. But you got all these homeless dying right in front of Starbucks, and wouldn't we step over them? And I mean, they're an inconvenience to us. But I guess that's just the way life is, right? What are you going to do? Now, the show I was going to do last week, I put together some serious notes about in defense of Donald Trump and his documents trial coming up, his documents indictment. I did get a chance to read the entire indictment of Mr. Trump. And when I first read it, I said, let me take a look at this as a criminal defense investigator as I would look at any case that came, any indictment, any client that came to me with their case. And I'll look at it that way, right? So I'm looking at it, and I says, you know what, man? He's got a chance. The whole indictment is predicate. It's relying on the grand jury testimony and the notes of this fellow, Evan Cochran, who is Mr. Donald J. Trump's attorney. And they were able to pierce the attorney-client privilege shield with something called the Fraud and Crimes that if your attorney is involved in fraud and crimes with the client, then that pierces the attorney-client privilege. And he was subpoenaed and forced to testify and turn over his notes. Okay? And that's Evan Cochran, the crime fraud exemption. That's the most damning evidence against Donald Trump. His notes, his conversations with Trump, Trump telling him to help hide things and stuff like that. His knowledge. Now, it's already been to the appellate court, the third appellate court, ruled to the crime fraud exemption should stand for him to testify before the grand jury. Now, I've had conflicting legal advice. One attorney telling me, well, Ed, they can still file a motion to try to to try to suppress his testimony and evidence in the criminal trial. And I was told by another attorney, no, it's too late. They cannot file that motion. But I believe that they can. And I believed last week, as of tonight, that if they could, Trump had a great case. That the prosecution's case, as far as Mar-a-Lago and as far as Florida goes, would be an uphill battle. Now, the other witnesses against Trump, one is a co-defendant, okay, who's sitting back. He's not flipping on Trump yet. He's waiting to see what's going to happen. And he has a certain degree of confidence that Trump is going to prevail, so he hasn't flipped yet. And the longer he waits, the worse deal he's going to get. Now, the other witnesses against Trump, by the way, there's other lawyers too, like that woman, what's her name? I have it here in the notes. Christina Bobb. Okay, now she's the one who actually signed. She became the custodian of records, who signed the affidavit saying, hey, I'm in charge of these records, and we've turned them all over to you. Now, that declaration was written, actually, by Mr. Evan Cochran, wrote that declaration. He would not sign it himself, and he had Christina Bobb, who's a low-level attorney. She's mostly involved with Trump's campaign legal matters and stuff like that. And she's on the hook, okay, for lying as the custodian of records. She's lied under oath. So they haven't charged her, but they could, okay, if things were to fall through with Evan Cochran. So then the other people are all Trump employees. They're all employed by Trump. Now, just recently, it just came out last night that they have a whole list of everyone who testified for the grand jury before in this situation here. I haven't had a chance to review that because it's unnecessary at this point. Because even though I was confident, as Mr. Trump's new self-appointed defense investigator, okay, I was confident last week that we had a chance to get him out from under these charges. Like all defendants who are their own worst enemies, Mr. Trump takes the Academy Award of being his own worst enemy when it comes to being a defendant in a criminal case. Because you have no idea. These people that got their own thing going on in their head. You're trying to, I can't give legal advice, but you're trying to advise them, and they just got their own plan going on, their own. It's just amazing what goes on with these criminal defendants. Or even sometimes civil litigants. But Mr. Trump goes on this Bret Baier show on Fox News and basically goes ahead and confesses to everything. Makes all these self-incriminating statements that even if he were to prevail with the Evan Cochran fraud crime exemption, there's no hope. Okay. If he were to prevail there, And let's say all these employees who have given testimony and given grand jury testimony there, that it does not benefit Mr. Trump. Let's say they were all to get these around the world trip tours or something, these cruises around the world. They were to suddenly win. Okay, they suddenly won a cruise around the world and they weren't available to testify. Every single last man jack of them. Let's say they all won the lottery. Okay, not that I'm saying we would ever tamper with a witness, but let's say that something happened in their lives that they weren't able to testify. Okay, or that they just no longer had the motivation that they wanted to testify. If we were able to chip away at every one of them, and if we were able to reestablish the attorney-client privilege with Evan Cochran and Mr. Trump by some miracle there, because like I said, it's already been through the appellate court. And if we got those two miracles, it doesn't matter anymore because Trump just went on Barrett. It was Brett Baer, and pretty much just confessed to everything. It's a hopeless situation. And you know what? No matter what, the guy's going to keep talking. He's going to keep burying himself. I guess he's thinking that his only hope at this point is to be reelected president and then squash these investigations and these trials and stuff and even that he wasn't very successful at that the last time he was president, appointing people like Bill Barr, some of the most corrupt people in town, which then brings us to the whole Durham report. I had to hear, man, if you guys could read my emails and my private messages, Ed, wait till the Durham report comes out. Everything, he's going to prove everything been saying is wrong, and Hillary's going to be arrested, and Hunter Biden, the laptop from hell, and Carter Page, and Lisa Strzok, and all this stuff. All this stuff, right? And what happened, man? The Durham report comes out, and there's nothing there except that he doesn't like the Russia investigation. But then he got eaten alive at the congressional hearings the other day. Eaten alive in public. Okay, so the Durham report and any hope, the Durham report has gone the way of the memo and all the stuff, the grand, what was that other thing too, the special prosecutor, not special, it was, all these different investigations that Trump has put forward trying to overturn everything, and somehow everyone, Stone and Manafort, would all be set free, and all these other people would be Hillary and would wind up in Gitmo and Obama and all this nonsense, man. It's just never going to happen. By the way, too, in that litigation too down there in Florida, the judge down there or the prosecutor has requested a temporary restraining order on Trump that when discovery evidence is released to him, he'd not be allowed to publicize it, that he not be allowed to discuss what's in those top secret documents. But he just goes right on Brett Baer and just does it anyway. It's just unbelievable. What's going on here? It's just unbelievable. Oh, another thing that happened this week, too, in my personal life, by the way, because I'm looking through my notes. It's such a small world, and it's just such a small world of coincidences. We're out here starting Vic's new job, and in the same city we're in, it turns out that her old speech and debate team is at nationals competing in the national speech and debate competition. And their new teacher and instructor is her ex-partner and her ex-boyfriend from high school. Now, her ex-boyfriend from high school is now their teacher, and he's also the debate coach. So we're out here killing time, doing different things, looking at apartments, shopping at thrift stores and stuff. And we find out they're in town. We go over to see them, and we see these youngsters who are competing in this national debate. Now Victoria, she took her team, the team that she trained. She took them. She was the captain and the president of the debate team. and in her reign of debate, reign of power in debate world. And she took her team to nationals, and they won nationals. And then the team that she trained the next year went to nationals too as well. And this is a tiny little school in Nevada. The school she represented, tiny little debate team, okay, to this huge status nationwide. So when we went to see them at the competition, and these kids saw my daughter, it was like they saw royalty show up in their presence. And you should have seen their faces. Now, some of these kids too, by the way, they're juniors and sophomores, which is a huge accomplishment for a sophomore to make it to nationals in the debate competitions. And the young man who was the most enamored seeing Victoria, turns out he listens to the show. He listens to the Opperman Report. So not only is he excited to see Victoria, his former coach and teacher, he's like, oh my God, it's that Opperman, the Opperman Report. Because I follow you on Instagram. This kid is a sophomore, and he came out in second place in nationals. So that that paves such a way for his career and life in the future that you can't imagine. There's such a huge accomplishment. So just so gratifying to see the hard work of these kids go out there and compete and stuff like that, and to see that the influence that Vic's had on their lives, and even the influence that this show has had on people's lives and out there in their accomplishments and stuff. So, okay, debate moving. Tara Reid. You might recall Tara Reid came out when she was a volunteer. She came out and alleged that she had been groped and molested by Joe Biden, Sr. Joe Biden. When she first came out with her statement, when she first came out in public, I contacted her immediately and reached out to her. And she agreed to come on the show. Okay, this is years ago. This is during the primaries. Okay? And she agreed to come on the show. And we had discussed other protecting her interests, other advice and solutions in her situation coming forward. And I can tell you, I know she was very concerned about her safety and her safety. And you solo, you speak up against a Democratic candidate for president, someone as powerful as Joe Biden has been through worked in the Senate, 40-some years, in Washington, D.C. and Delaware. He's a powerful guy, and he's got all these international business deals going on here, the Biden family, So we reached out to her. She agreed to do an interview with us. And then, one time I actually had to cancel because of a road trip or something came up. And most recently, she was supposed to come on the show, but she was going to testify before Congress in these new hearings that this little group, Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert and Matt Gaetz and this crew, and then put on these. Some of the hearings they're putting on are real hearings, and some are like mock hearings about. I think there were January 6th mock hearings they were putting on. It's just very bizarre. So she was concerned that she wanted to testify on this, and she didn't want to come on the show because that was hovering above. Well, it just turns out that she sought political asylum in Russia. Now, how this came about, I have no inside information. But I think this demonstrates the amount of Russian influence in U.S. politics and U.S. dissidents. And how they seem to prop up and support people that are mostly anti-Democrat Party in the United States. and kind of prop up some of these right wingers. Now, there's a document out there written by Bernard Kerik, who was from New York City. He was formerly the the Department of Corrections commissioner, and then he became police commissioner. He was police commissioner on 9/11. On 9/11, when he was police commissioner, you could see him directing Rudy Giuliani. No, we don't want to go to that headquarters. You want to go to this other one. And on that day, his best friend was a fellow named Larry Ray, who had intelligence background, was an FBI informant in connection with the instigation. It was Bernie Kerik who facilitated him becoming an FBI informant. He received a lot of money. I think it was $200,000 from the FBI as an informant. Once again, involving Stinger missiles. Always the same story with all these guys. And he, at that time, had a wife, had a girlfriend, and he would prostitute. He would sex traffic his girlfriend. And then years later, he became more famous when he turned against Bernie Kerik, and he provided the evidence that got Bernie Kerik a prison sentence. And then you see him in this Sarah Lawrence scandal where he went to live in the dorm room of Sarah Lawrence, began dating his daughter's roommates and controlling their lives. He seemed to be involved in some kind of stimulants. And there's very credible documentation where he was sex trafficking his girlfriend, his young girlfriend at that time, for up to $8,000 a day, in prostitution, daily prostitution. So you got to understand, you have to imagine, who was he sex trafficking these women to? These were high rollers. These were people with a lot of money, a lot of power. Bernie Kerik has a report. Who was this report directed to? It was it's a strategic communication plan, Giuliani Legal Defense Team. We have 10 days to execute this plan and certify President Trump. He was involved in this plan in the coup, the January 6th coup, but also involved in this whole plan for these false electors, these counterfeit electors. This was all part of his plan that he was involved in. And he makes these same claims in here, too, that were later widely discredited about Hugo Chavez being involved with the Dominion voting machines, all kind of stuff like that. But in here, too, he lists friendly news outlets, bloggers, and tweeters, channels to disseminate messaging, presidential tweets, Giuliani team tweets, talk radio, conservative bloggers, YouTube influencers, social media influencers, local TV stations, targeting of local legislators, as most people watch local news, conservative podcast, op-eds in local papers, pre-written op-eds for online publication. So this is where he wants to disseminate this propaganda, right? And then he has here a list of actual names of people who's going to be disseminating this and spreading this propaganda on his behalf in order to prop up these fake electors and steal the election. Let me see here. Because he has names in here like here we go. Candace Owens, Charlie Kirk, Hodge Twins, Officer Tatum, Ben Shapiro, PragerU, Dave Rubin, Daily Wire, Students for Trump, The Majority Report, Sam Sater, Steve Crowder, Mark Levin, Eric Meet Taxis, and Brandon Straka, Michael Knowles, Ron Code Monkey. That's Ron Watkins. Code Monkey knows him first name, Ron. You know, these are all the guys that they can count on to spread their propaganda for them in writing. Stop the Fraud, which is a Twitter account. Hey Jude, which is a Twitter account. America Girls, a Twitter account with 25,000 Bradley Scott. Juanita Broderick, a former guest on this show, is one of their trusted propagandists. John Kiss My Bot, Adam Carolla, and Trish Regan. Now, very interesting, right? How people like Tara Reid appear to be funded by the Russians, and they give her sanctuary, and how people like Juanita Broderick and these other folks here are considered reliable key propagandists to promote this fake electors situation. Now, on the same time that Mr. Trump was being indicted and arrested for the Mar-a-Lago documents thing, who was seen walking in to testify in one of these grand juries regarding the fake electors? Michael McDonald. Now, who is Michael McDonald? Okay, now, the average person in the United States has no idea who Michael McDonald is. When I first moved to Las Vegas, Nevada, Michael McDonald was first elected to House of Representatives over there, or the city council or something like that, very low-level position, Republican Party. He's a former cop. His tactics were so aggressive that they passed new rules in the city council there that you weren't allowed to bring a firearm onto the state property there in the state legislature where he was a member. Then he later on went on. Today he's the head of the Republican Party. He's like one of the top, you remember how I played that audio of Tarkanian, that woman Tarkanian, Kathy Tarkanian, when she was the head of the Republican Party and she lost. Her husband lost his, again, another bid for office. And she sounded like Sandra Good from the Charles Manson family. And I played those two recordings back to back when she had the rant. And so Michael McDonald became the head of the Republican GOP there for a while. He may be right now, because there's a lot of turmoil over there. And at one point, he formed a company where the only way to describe it was organized attorney fee splitting, where the purpose of this consulting company, where you would go to him to find out which lawyer to hire for which judge and which lawyer, which is something I do too. I consult with people, but basically he was brokering attorneys to clients, and brokering clients to attorneys. And in some bizarre reaction to this, I guess they didn't want to go after him for the obvious, so they kind of demanded that he get a private investigator's license in order to do the client brokering business, which is, I can't imagine how it falls underneath the private investigation. But that just goes to show you how corrupt Nevada politics is at this time. Michael McDonald. So he was one of the fake electors. Okay, he himself had appointed himself a fake elector, and he was going to, the Electoral College, these fake electors that they had. And he's also brags about his involvement with January 6th. As Bernie Kerik actually ran the war room, he paid for that war room out of his own credit card. He was later paid back. Much of that money coming from the public's heir, whose contributions to January 6th coup attempt now exceeds all previous estimations and imagination of how much money she was putting into this. And it's come out that it's well beyond $3 million now. So that's what's going on there, too. We haven't seen the indictment yet on January 6th, who was involved. This whole fake elector scam, the whole Georgia thing we haven't seen yet. Just all I need is 10,000 votes. Go find me 10,000 votes. Who was on that phone call? Mark Meadows. Who do we know now just pled guilty when agreeing to testify in all truthfulness? Mark Meadows. So, guys, the writing is on the wall here as far as a conviction. I myself predicted back in September 30th, 2016, might have been 2015, that Mr. Trump was going to wind up behind bars. There's no way he could withstand all the scrutiny of his business practices, his personal life. He's already been found liable in a civil sexual abuse case, a rape case. And I believe there's some more around the corner, too. Some more rape litigation, too. Then we have the Stormy Daniels case out there, too, which is about to be prosecuted. So, very, very busy week there for Mr. Trump and Mr. McDonald and the fake elector situation. One more controversy I've got myself involved in the past week, because it never ends. It just never ends with the Opperman report, you know? And the life of Ed Opperman and the crap I get involved in. I'm so sore. My whole body hurts. So there was this controversy on Twitter with who's that guy? Joe Rogan, right? Where Joe Rogan had interviewed RFK Jr. And where is this? Who's that fellow? Forget the guy's name, but there's a prominent vaccine proponent, Hotez, okay? He's a virologist, right? From Texas, a Texas virologist, they call him. Dr. Peter Hotez. So what happened was Joe Rogan had interviewed JFK Jr., and Mr. Dr. Peter Hotez had written on Twitter, hey, you know, all the people who died because of these guys with their wacky anti-vaxxer information. So Rogan, you know, has a huge following, you know, and it's rather intimidating when you have a huge person with a huge following. Or even a person with no following, but they can hire 150, 200 bots to spam you up and troll you all night long. That's, you know, it's a big hassle. So Joe Rogan confronted Dr. Peter Hotez, and he said, hey, come on the show and debate. What's his name? JFK Jr. Right? And he says, okay, you know, listen, I'd like to, I don't want to be pressured here on Twitter to agree to a debate, but, you know, let's talk about it, and maybe we'll come up with something, we'll do something. So right after that, who shows up at his door but Alex Rosen? Now, Alex Rosen is a fellow who runs an organization called Predator Poachers on YouTube. And when I first started getting into all these YouTuber predator poachers, these predator exposer guys, predator hunters, Alex Rosen's one of the first one I became interested in. I started watching his shows, and I contacted him, and I said, hey, you know, I was the PI in the Jeffrey Epstein case. I'd like to help you with your activities here with these, when you interrogate these people. I'd like to talk to you, and I'd like to help you make your case and make them prosecution ready. So you can actually get prosecutions from these cases. He says, okay, contact me on Instagram. Right? So I sent him a couple of messages, and one of the things I told him was, hey, check out the read interrogation techniques, okay? Which anybody who does interrogations or witness interviews should read interrogations, read techniques of interrogation. There's a whole series of books on it. And I could tell from watching the videos that Alex had gone and at least had watched some videos about the read interrogation techniques. I could see him using them at the time, at least. And I also told him, listen, you have to have a report. You need a report. This is my name. This is my such and such address. I'm over the age of 21 years old. I've been doing this. I'm the president of Predator Boaches, blah, blah, blah. I've been doing this for 2.5 years. We have successful, this is my procedure. On such and such a date, we created this fake email account, this fake profile on Tinder, on, whatever, on Grindr, in order to lure this person. They contacted us on this date. Everything is documented, okay? We had this decoy person send them phone calls, do a telephone conversation with them on such and such a date, such and such a time. The decoy lives at this address. This is it. So then when the cops show up, or you don't even, they're doing it for the filming. They call the cops on the scene. But you could just mail that to the cops, man, and you'll get a case. Okay, you'll mail it to the DA, you mail it to the cops, have them sign for it, and you'll get a case. If it's done right, if you prepare your case, you prepare your report. Now, I've taught other predator poacher type guys, other predator hunters, YouTubers, that now go around saying, look, we've got 130 arrests since they've started these new procedures. Okay? Now, I'm not tooting my own horn. I'm not bragging here, but okay, fine. I help a guy. Show them some basic techniques, and they go out and make 100 arrests of pedophiles. I'm kind of proud of that. Okay, now I offered Alex Rosen the same, because what happened was Alex Rosen went there because he's a real right-wing nut, and he showed up at this doctor's house and said, hey, and with his camera there saying, Dr. Peter Hotez, hey, why don't you debate Jeff K. Jr. on Joe Rogan? And the guy's smiling, he's wearing like a gardening hat, he's like, oh my God, okay, thanks a lot, okay. And then he goes on Twitter and he says, oh my goodness, I was just stalked at my doorstep by a crazed anti-vaxxer. And I got to tell you, Alex Rosen does kind of look like he does come off like a crazed anti-vaxxer. He's like 6'5", he's like 350 pounds. He wears shorts in the winter outside, It's just a bizarre guy in a lot of ways. Not that I don't think he's doing some good work. I think he is. So when Dr. Ortiz posts, oh my God, the stalker just came to my door, Jimmy Dore says, oh yeah, and if you believe that, you'll believe this, right? So I had seen, because I follow Alex Rosen, I know him, I had seen the video. So I chime in there to Jimmy Dore and say, oh no, look, he just did. Here's the guy. He just went to his house and he posted the video. So then Jimmy Dore sees that and he reposts my video. And that's what got this whole crazy controversy started that went on for days with Alex Rosen. I have a problem, okay, with there was another one of these YouTube fellows who had a really good case. He caught this pastor of a church in the process of trying to lure this, decoy child into a sexual rape and sexual battery there. And when the video went public, a lot of other victims from that pastor had started coming forward. So I contacted him and I said, hey, man, put these victims in touch with me and we'll put together a lawsuit. We'll close that church. We'll sue these people into the graveyard. And somebody went back to him and said, oh, that Ed Opperman, he's a George Soros supporter or prosecutor. It was craziness, connecting me to George Soros, And so all those survivors, all those victims could have benefited from a little bit of help and a little bit of representation there. And that was all sabotaged by these guys and their crazy right-wing beliefs and their crazy conspiracy theories, really. So anyway, so that's how I got involved in that little controversy. Got involved in that one too. Okay, because it never ends here. So we're 51 minutes in. I'm over time anyway, so we'll end early. And the next show coming up will be Casey Gane Magala. And then after that, we're going to be talking about Chris Tucker, Michael Jackson, and Jeffrey Epstein. And then Barrett Brown. We talk a lot about Julian Assange. And by the way, too, man, I got to tell you something. I'm watching the other night people talking about this Seth Rich thing like it's real. I mean, man, people still... like how much more do you want it to be debunked? And I'm just biting my tongue on that situation, man, but it's going to come out sooner or later. It's such nonsense, man. The whole, by the way, too, Benny, me and Barrett Brown talk about the whole thing with Benny and his stupid report about how it couldn't have been, it had to be an on-site data breach. I think we get into that tonight, too, with Barrett Brown. So it's been so long since I taped with him. I've been doing so much traveling, it's hard to keep track of it. So let's play first. We're going to play Casey Gane and then Barrett Brown. Guys, keep an eye out for Sunday mornings, the May Brussels Project on the Opperman Report podcast platform. You can hear all the archives there from now on. Thank you so much, guys, and good night.